Morning everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar, the NHS SAR Portal webinar, Enhancements Made by the NHS. My name's Chris and I'm joined by my colleague Neil as well, who will be taking us through a demo a bit later on of the SAR Portal and looking at some of those enhancements we've been talking about as well. Before we kick off, you'll notice on the right hand side that there's a toolbar, and at the bottom of the toolbar there's a place to ask any questions that you might have, and we'll do our best to go through as many of those as we can at the end of the webinar. So we appreciate there's quite a few of our customers on the webinar, but there's also some new organisations, some new NHS trusts and new contacts. So for those of you who don't know us, next year we'll be celebrating our 30th year in business, and for a lot of that time we've been working very heavily with the NHS. And this has predominantly been with our secure file transfer solution and our SAR request management portal, which of course is the solution we're going to be discussing today. Between the two solutions, we have over 100 NHS sites, and that actually equates to about 20,000 people using the platforms to send and receive sensitive files or their health records on a monthly basis. Because of the sorts of customers that we have a lot of emphasis here at AMS on security, and we're lucky enough that the platforms are hosted in the Microsoft Azure environment, and that's UK data centers. And as you would expect with a business like ours, we also have ISO 27001 and have also recently been through our DSP toolkit. For those of you who know what it is or are interested, we're also on the Crown Commercial Service, so the CCS framework as well. A little bit of a backstory to the SAR Portal. So this is a third-party product. This is our product, but it has really been commissioned and developed by our NHS Trust customers over the years. And what we typically see is that it's used very heavily in health records for subject access requests, freedom of information requests, departments like Medico-Legal, concerns and complaints, negligence, for example. But really, any part of the trust that's receiving requests that need to be assigned and managed, they can be pushed through the NHS SAR Portal. When we're talking to our NHS Trust customers, they're liaising with patients directly, but also with organisations such as the police, Department of Work and Pensions, for example, coroners, hospitals, and really any other relevant third party that you can imagine liaising with requests coming into the trust. So before I pass you over to Neil, I thought I'd just summarise very briefly at a very high level what the SAR Portal actually is. So the SAR Portal is one secure portal for managing the whole request process. So this is from capturing it with web forms or manually, which we will touch on in a few moments' time on the demo, assigning that request and managing it through with reports and analytics, also communicating through the portal, perhaps to a patient, for example, perhaps you need some updated ID or updated proof of address, and of course securely delivering those files with encryption and an audit trail through the portal, which we know is very important. Now, some of the exciting features that we're going to talk about today and hopefully show you, internal messaging. So not only can you communicate with patients and third parties, solicitors, for example, you can also communicate through the portal with your colleagues. Perhaps you need to go off to a clinician, for example, to get consent or to gather more files to disclose your request. There's also a checklist and task management offering validation, which is something we're very excited about. I won't talk about that in detail now because Neil's going to show you that in a few seconds' time. And features such as document tags, where you can tag a document with a certain identity, which is useful, of course, internally for you as an organisation, but also adds an element of control. So, for example, if a document is tagged as internal, there's no chance of your colleague or staff member sending that document out to a patient. So that's probably enough from me. I'm going to pass over to Neil now, who will take you through a demo and touch on some of those enhancements that we briefly mentioned.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, morning, everyone. So for today's demo, I'm going to show you making a request from this side of the portal through to managing a request through the administration side, and finally disclosing and reporting as well. So this particular portal can be maybe published on your website, and it includes a configurable summary through to how to make a request and getting started online. This particular portal has, for our demo, an NHS logo, but this could be your organisation's logo that you could upload to it. So if I make a start by logging in, I already have an account, but it's very easy just to self-sign up for one. And as soon as I log in, I could view and manage my existing requests, or I can indeed make new requests as well. And these forms that you can see that are published have been made externally visible. And essentially, the form names can be completely customized along with the instruction. So maybe below the form, you may wish to include some further information about what they're looking to fill out. For the purpose of the demo, I'll fill out for my own health records. This particular form has 4 steps to it, just to save you having a continually long form. So it kind of segments it into different areas. On this particular one, I'm just going to go ahead and start filling out some of the information that it's prompted me to do so. And you'll notice some of the areas of this portal are required fields, but these can also be non-mandatory as well. And there's a whole form builder in the background. So you really do have a great deal of control on creating the forms in close relation to your current manual forms. So if I press continue, the next stage is to submit some information about the request that I'm making. In particular, maybe I had an appointment a couple of months ago and I wish to make an inquiry about the records that relate to that appointment. So if I just make some information in there and press continue. The next step is to essentially prove your identity. So in this case, we have these form uploader areas, and you can include a description. You can even restrict the types of files that can be uploaded and the size of those. But basically, it's a case of clicking on each area and uploading the relevant file. In this case, a driving license to confirm my name, and a utility bill to confirm my address. And the really good thing about these forms, once they're published, is that they are accessible from mobile devices as well, or tablets, and you can actually integrate and use them with the camera technology from your phone, for example, to take a picture of a document and upload it to the request as well. So next, these types of solutions don't necessarily need a wet signature, and instead we have these checkboxes just to agree to the terms and conditions of the portal. So the top one is confirming that you agree to the General Data Protection Regulation, as well as the Access to Health Records Act, and the second one is just to confirm my identity. And what's nice once you submit that is that it takes you to a customizable thank you page. And this has been designed, including the text that's visible, and also, as you can see, it's pulled in some dynamic text, as well as a reference number that's unique to me. As well as the thank you page, you can also send out an email notification just to reassure the requester that you've received their request and include any information, including that reference number as well. So if I head over to the admin side of the portal, where we're now going to manage the request, ask any related questions, and go through and disclose and complete the request as well. First things first, you can see the areas here. So my requests are any requests that are assigned to you personally. Active requests is a combination of your own requests and your team's requests. And pull requests are any requests that need to be triaged and assigned to your colleagues. And you'll notice that there are some color-coded symbols on here, and these relate to the categories of the request that's assigned to them. And these categories dictate the number of days to breach. So green being active, through to amber, red is nearing breach, and breached is the kind of brown colour. So if we head over to the pull requests, and quite quickly you can see the request that we've just submitted at the top. And what's nice about this area and the other areas within the portal is that they can be completely configured to suit your working environment. So you can actually move these column headings around. You could introduce or even remove column headings that aren't relevant to your process as well. The information on first load can be organized in ascending or descending order based on any one of these values. And also you can set a default search criteria. At the moment it's hospital site, but maybe you're used to working with reference number, so you'd set that as your initial default. Clicking into the request, you'll see that there's an alerts area at the top, which will alert you on anything that requires an action. So in my case right now, I do need to assign the request, which I'll do in a second. Going down into the request details, you can now see the reference number that's been generated for this particular request, who made the request and whether they're a portal user or not, the form that's been filled out. You'll notice the category has been set to patient by default, which you can do on each form. And also you can override that and potentially select from a predefined list of categories as well. We now have duplicate detection built into the platform, and what this enables you to do is be notified quite quickly on whether something matches some criteria that you've set on the form. So whether it be a date of birth and name that potentially matches a previous request, and you can quickly view those and make an informed decision as to whether it is a duplicate. If it is, you could delete it, or you could just continue working on those independently. Finally, at the top, we have the clock status, and there's actually 3 levels of clock status that we offer. The first being on submission. So once you complete the electronic form, or once you complete that manual request, which I'll show you in a second, it can start that clock automatically. The next one is manually, so you just start it when you see fit. And the one that I've got on here today on my particular form is on ID check being completed. Down to the patient details, this area too can be configured to suit your working environment. So the fields here I've just displayed and the order they're in just for the demo purpose, but these could include information that you need to be able to see to manage your requests. You'll see as well that it has pulled in some information from the form that's been filled out, and likewise there's some other fields that do require some attention. I'm triaging at the moment, so I may wish to leave that up to the person managing the request, or I could go ahead and maybe update the hospital site in this case. You'll notice hospital site, we've created a drop-down list of options, and in my case, I'll just select Broomfield. You can have the reason for change set to a required field as well. So you'll notice that's now set it to Broomfield, and I'll show you in a second how that follows through into the reporting later on. So the form area is essentially just the information that's been captured from the form, whether it be electronic or manual. Checklist is a new feature that we released in the last update. And what's really good about checklist is that you can enforce a predefined checklist of items that the requester needs to go through and quite easily check off as and when they've completed them. And what you can also do is allow them to override the existing checklist, so they can add further checklist items to enable them to manage the request more easily, or they can even edit and delete the existing ones that you have predefined. I'll leave the last one unchecked because we also have something built in called validation, and that can be enabled or disabled on each form. And what that will do is prevent us, if it's enabled, from completing a request unless you've checked all of those items off. Files is a central area where either the files that are uploaded as part of a submission, or maybe they've been introduced to the platform in the request itself from an external or internal message, or maybe you're uploading the records that you wish to disclose manually. And this allows you to have a global overview of the files that relate to the request. We also have something called tagging that Chris mentioned, and this just prevents you from sending anything externally unnecessarily. So if we mark the internal documents, that just safeguards you from sending anything that you shouldn't. Something I mentioned before about the clock starting is to perform an ID check. So again, this can be done at a triage stage or once you've assigned the request. So we can quite easily see that this is the person that's made the request on this particular form, and I can mark that as an ID document. Notes can be really added once you receive maybe a phone call or some further correspondence from someone. So maybe you could put that the patient called in. And what this does is date and timestamp that event. Finally, you have the audit, which builds. So as and when you make changes or events happen relating to the request, they are added to the audit. If maybe, if we go back to files, you find out that the utility bill is outdated and it's not relevant to this part of the request, maybe we could request a new one. And you can actually do that from within the portal using the external messages. And we can use something called a request for information. And as well, we have message templates. So you can predefine these just to make the process quicker to request that information. In this case, it would be an updated utility bill. And I can also prompt the recipient of that message, the original requester, to send a file in response as well. So whilst that email is being sent, we have something now called the status column, and this gives you a clear indication of what's happened to that message, the status it's in, and also you can now open the original message that you sent, and you can even track it as well and figure out whether they've read the message. And again, it's got its own internal audit of what's happened during the life cycle of that message. Likewise, we have something called reminders, which are email reminders. So if you do need to nudge someone to respond to that message, you can do. And also recall information as well, which is key if you send something that you no longer wish to be available. So if I pop over to my email, I now have an email with a login button so I can access the question that's been asked. And you'll notice that the body of the email through to the login button and the signatures, these can all be customized per notification that's sent out via the system, so it makes it very flexible and personable. If we log into the portal, it's taken me straight to my request as the requester, and more importantly, I can see the message requesting an updated utility bill, and I can enclose that for review and send that response back. So as the person managing that request, you can also receive an email notification prompting you that a question has been answered, or indeed you can view the response directly from within the portal just by opening it and seeing any files that have been attached. And if I go over to the files area, we can now tag the utility bill number 2 as internal. Obviously, you can view that using the inline viewer, and we can also then delete the previous version of that. So now we may wish to make an assignment. So if we want to assign this request to one of our colleagues to actually manage and maybe start the process of asking internal questions to maybe a clinician, we can do so by selecting their name from a predefined list of contacts or users. And before we do that, it's now prompting us with an alert to confirm the identity. So if we do so, you'll see it references the driving license that we previously confirmed as an ID doc, and we just need to type in the word yes to fulfill that and confirm. And now that has indeed started the clock on this particular request. So to make an internal request for information, like we mentioned, possibly to a clinician for further information, there's a free type email address field. So if we pop in their email address, a message is a one-way message. Maybe you're sending them some information, an intent of request. This is a request for information which is two-way. Again, predefined template if you wish to, or you can free type a message and prompt them to send some information back to you. You also have the status panel as well, so you can track these messages through. So if we go off to the email, we should be able to see a notification to the clinician. I do have an account already, so I can log in, but this may be that they have, or they can access the message via a token instead of logging in if you don't wish for them to be able to create an account. So as the clinician, I can now read the message and I can enclose the relevant information that they've requested. In this case, just this audit document, and I can send the response. Again, you could be email notified as the original requester. You'll notice that also shows the previous internal messages that I've responded to as the clinician as well. So it keeps the central record. Back to the request, you can see that we've responded. The file again has been uploaded centrally, and we can tag that as an internal document. So we're ready to disclose. So right now we need to upload our records file, and we can tag that as external. And if we go off to external messages, you'll see that I don't actually have a completed option, and that's because we have the validation enabled on the checklist. So what I'll need to do first is just check off the consent item, and now when I go back to external messages, that does indeed provide me with either a partial response in addition to the completed response, which I'll do today. And I can again select from a predefined list of templates for the completed one in this case, and you can see you can also include dynamic information as well. And I'll go ahead and attach my records document and send that off. So this has now marked the request as completed, and it's moved the request from my request into the archive, where that contains previously completed requests and any rejected requests as well. An email is automatically being sent to the original requester, where they can now access the message and the file that you sent to them. So if I quickly log in, and you'll see I've got an alert at the top. I can read my unread message, find the message that they've sent to me, and I can now download the relevant files and I can view them on my machine. So if I go back to the administration side, something that Chris touched on before is manual uploads. And the good thing about manual uploads again is that you can customize the form capture to be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. Maybe you're taking a telephone call, you've received an email request or a letter, and this allows you to quickly onboard those manual requests through the portal as well, with the same management tool behind it. And finally, if I go over to the administration side, as you can imagine, it's very comprehensive in the background, but what I'll concentrate on just for now is the reporting area. So we have different report types, from the completed to breached or rejected. For the purpose of the demo, I'll just select all, and I can set a submission date, a start and end date. I'll just page back a couple of months, and also you can do it by user if you needed to. But by pressing search, it gives me the results in a nice table. Something that's missing from this is the hospital site that I filled out previously. And what you can actually do is include that within the report. You could run a filtered search on a particular hospital site if you needed to, and you'll see it's resolved a list back of all the sites relating to Broomfield. And indeed, you'll be able to export that in a required format where you can run further analysis outside of the portal if you need to. You'll probably notice some nice imagery at the top right. And these are different summary reports and trend reports that we have. The one in the background there is a category summary. We also have a form trend on how many of the forms have been filled out over the period of time, or maybe you might wish to run an owner trend. But the good thing here is this information can be saved out and included in your quarterly or weekly or monthly reports. Before I do end and pass you back over to Chris, Something that we're actually really excited about is our task management, and this is new in the portal. It's something that we've been able to include in today's demo. Chris will also be going over the future development roadmap in a second. But if I scroll down, you'll see we now have this real nice and easy task view. And right now this is showing all tasks that have been assigned personally to me. And you create a task on a per request basis. You can have multiple tasks, as you can imagine. And this allows you to set things like different priorities, different statuses, personalized categories, who they're assigned to, start and end dates and due dates. You can be reminded by email when a task is coming up. And we also have inbuilt checklists into these as well. So if I click on a checklist, you can see this one's 50% complete because I have another one to check off the list. You can categorize them in high priority if you wish to. Due soon is a list of tasks that are due within the next 5 days. Recently assigned is tasks that have been assigned within the last 5 days, and upcoming are any tasks or events that are due within the next 5 days. If I go over to the request area and just quickly click into a request, and you can now see we've got the task button. And what's nice here is you can add new tasks, as you can imagine. And also we've got this Kanban view, which allows you to see the status of the tasks. And what's really good here is that you can indeed push them on to the next level just by dragging and dropping them over, and even prioritizing them as well by swapping them around. I know I haven't really gone into this in too much detail, but we're just conscious of time. But that's the new feature. Obviously, we're really excited about it. But what I'll do is just pass you back over to Chris to conclude the demo.
Brilliant. Thanks, Neil. And Neil's just really scratched the surface there. But hopefully that's given you a good idea of how the SAR portal works generally, and some more information on those enhanced features. So just to sort of conclude the webinar, I wanted just to touch on a little bit about, I suppose, who we are and our culture and the way we like to work with our customers. Now, we are a smaller business, but we like to feel that this gives us the ability to offer much more of a personal approach, especially when working with our NHS customers. And whether that's us as account managers or the support team, it enables us to be very hands-on. We're all based down here in Poole on the south coast. As account managers, we're actually tasked to help our NHS trust develop. And what we mean by that is that when a trust takes on the SAR portal, we want to ensure that they're using it to the best of its ability, and they're leveraging that investment as much as possible. As we've already mentioned, this product really has been developed and enhanced by our NHS trust customers over the years, and you've got the opportunity to make the solution your own. So we always welcome feedback on the solution, and anything you suggest will go into a technical roadmap, and assuming it's useful for all of the other customers, and eventually will be put into the product. More recently, we've been offering bulk training sessions as well, and that's really because we want to ensure that you and your team are completely comfortable with the way that the SAR portal works. And hopefully the positive knock-on effect of that is that the service that you offer to your patients and your third parties is improved as well. So just the last slide, because I appreciate we're short on time. Just wanted to touch on the future technical roadmap and where the product's heading. Now, for those of you who know our file transfer products, you may know that there's a PACS or radiology module with that solution. That's actually coming into the SAR portal as well, and it's something that we're very excited about. Expanding on from that, and probably a little bit further down the line, we're also going to introduce a PACS web viewer as well, which makes it a little bit easier for the patients just to view those PACS images, what we call inline, so actually within the portal itself. And on the subject of viewers, we're looking to introduce a new document viewer, which will allow you to make annotations and redactions, again, inline, so actually within the portal itself. Now, Neil touched on it earlier, but something we're very excited about, and it's probably only a couple of weeks away, is the My Work and Teamwork views that we saw a second ago. And this will enable you to look at all of your outstanding tasks across all live requests for you and or for your team as well. So it's a great way of just using this tool and improving or helping you manage these SAR requests through the department. So that concludes the webinar. We really appreciate your time, so thanks for that. And if you do want to get in contact, there are some contact details up on the screen now. But if you do have an account manager, please feel free to, of course, give them a call or send them an email. And but if you have any questions, obviously, feel free to contact us. But thanks again for your time, and hopefully we get a chance to speak to you soon.